The sun was a warm golden coin in the vast blue sky. It painted the long grasses of the savannah in shades of honey and amber. Our old Land Rover, which we called Sandy, rumbled along the dusty track, leaving a gentle cloud behind us. Inside, there were 4 of us. I am Maya, and at 16, I felt the pull of Africa more than anywhere else on earth. My older brother Leo was at the wheel. He was always the responsible one, his eyes focused on the horizon. In the back, our friends Ben and Chloe were pointing out every zebra and giraffe, their faces pressed against the windows. We were here to see the Great Migration, a river of life flowing across the plains, a dream we had all shared since we were small children. Our journey had started weeks ago, with maps spread across the living room floor and endless excited chatter. We weren't just tourists, we were volunteers heading to a remote conservation outpost. Our mission was to help track animal populations and report on the health of the ecosystem. The air smelled of earth and wild herbs, a scent that felt ancient and full of promise. Every sunrise felt like a gift, a brand new painting just for us. We felt so small under the enormous sky, but we also felt connected to everything around us, a part of the great breathing wilderness. The savannah was not just a place, it was a feeling, a rhythm that you could feel in your own heartbeat. We sang along to old songs on the radio, our voices mixing with the hum of the engine and the distant calls of birds. Leo would tell us stories about the constellations we would see at night, stars so bright they felt close enough to touch. Chloe had a sketchbook, and she was constantly trying to capture the elegant gait of a gazelle or the powerful shape of a distant elephant. Ben, ever the scientist, had a pair of binoculars permanently attached to his face, identifying every bird species he could spot. We were a team, bound by our love for this wild, untamed land. We thought we knew what to expect: heat, dust, and incredible beauty. We were not prepared for what was waiting for us. The plan was simple. We would follow the old map to the research station, a small dot in a vast sea of green and gold. It was supposed to be a safe haven, a place of learning and protection. The journey itself was part of the adventure, a chance to witness the raw, unfiltered magic of the African plains before we settled into our work. We felt brave and capable, filled with the boundless optimism of youth. The world felt wide open, and we were ready to embrace whatever it threw at us. We had no idea that soon, the magic would turn into a nightmare, and the adventure would become a desperate fight for survival, testing us in ways we could never have imagined. The first sign was small, almost unnoticeable. It was late afternoon, and the light was turning soft and hazy. We spotted a pride of lions resting under a sprawling acacia tree. They were magnificent, their coats the color of sun-baked earth. But something was off. Normally, lions at this time of day are lazy, sleepy creatures, conserving their energy for the hunt after dusk. These lions were awake, their heads were up, their ears twitching, their golden eyes scanning the plains with a strange intensity. They weren't looking at the herds of wildebeest nearby. They were looking at us, at our Land Rover, even though we were a safe distance away. Leo slowed Sandy to a crawl, and Ben lifted his binoculars. "That's odd," he murmured, his voice a low hum of confusion. "They seem agitated? Restless?" Chloe stopped sketching and leaned forward, her brow furrowed with concern. The lions did not relax. One of the lionesses stood up, her muscles rippling under her sleek coat. She let out a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the very air around us. It wasn't the proud roar we had heard on documentaries. It was a sound of irritation, of aggression that felt misplaced and deeply unsettling. We all felt a small cold shiver despite the afternoon heat. It was a warning we did not yet understand. We decided to move on, dismissing the incident as a strange fluke. Perhaps we had simply disturbed their nap. The savannah was full of mysteries, and we were only visitors. But a few hours later, as the sun began to bleed purple and orange across the horizon, we saw it again. Another lion, a lone male with a dark shaggy mane, was standing on a rocky outcrop. He was watching our path, his body tense and coiled like a spring. He didn't move to hunt the nearby zebras. He just watched us, his gaze unwavering and unnerving. It felt personal. It felt like we were the prey. That night, as we set up our small camp, an uneasy silence fell over our group. The usual cheerful banter was gone, replaced by quiet, worried glances. The sounds of the night, usually a comforting symphony of chirping crickets and distant calls, now seemed to hold a hidden threat. Every rustle in the tall grass made us jump. Leo double-checked the perimeter of our camp, making sure the fire was burning brightly. We told ourselves we were being silly, letting our imaginations run wild. But deep down, a seed of fear had been planted. The lions were acting wrong, and we were miles from any help, alone under a sky full of silent, watching stars. The attack came without warning. We were huddled in our tents, trying to find sleep that would not come. The fire had dwindled to a pile of glowing orange embers, casting long dancing shadows all around us. Suddenly, the world exploded in a terrifying roar. It was not distant this time. It was right outside my tent, a sound so powerful it shook the ground and rattled my bones. I screamed, a thin, helpless sound swallowed by the immense darkness. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. This was not supposed to happen. Lions do not typically attack human camps unless they are desperate or provoked. Leo was the first one out, shouting our names, his voice tight with fear. "Get to the car! Now!" I scrambled out of my sleeping bag, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Through the thin fabric of the tent I could see them, shadows, large and muscular, circling our camp. There were more than one, more than two, a whole pride. Their eyes glinted in the faint moonlight, pairs of cold yellow lamps in the blackness. Another roar ripped through the night, closer this time, followed by the sound of claws tearing through canvas. Chloe screamed from her tent. They were hunting us. They were trying to get to us. We moved in a blur of pure terror. Ben burst from his tent and helped Chloe, who was frozen in fear. Leo was already at the Land Rover, fumbling with the keys, his face a pale mask in the darkness. I ran, my legs feeling clumsy and slow, the air thick and heavy in my lungs. A lioness lunged, a flash of tawny fur and gleaming teeth. She missed me by inches, her claws scraping against the metal side of the car with a screech that sent shivers down my spine. We tumbled into the vehicle, one on top of the other, slamming the doors shut just as the lions swarmed around us. The Land Rover became our tiny, fragile sanctuary in a storm of fury. The lions threw themselves against the vehicle, their heavy bodies rocking it back and forth. The sound was deafening, snarling, roaring, and the sickening thud of their paws against the metal and glass. We could see their faces pressed against the windows, their jaws open, saliva dripping from their teeth. Their eyes were not just hungry, they were filled with a crazed, relentless rage. We were trapped, our hearts pounding in unison with the violent assault. The longest night of our lives had just begun, and we knew with chilling certainty that this was no ordinary animal attack. Dawn finally broke, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and grey. The assault had ended as suddenly as it began. The lions retreated with the first light, melting back into the tall grass as if they were ghosts. We were left shaken and bruised, huddled inside the battered Land Rover. The windows were cracked, the sides were covered in deep scratches, and one of the tires was completely shredded. We were stranded. But worse than our physical predicament was the cold, creeping realization that something was terribly wrong with the lions. Their behavior went against everything we knew about these magnificent predators. Leo, his face grim, voiced what we were all thinking. "Lions don't hunt like that," he said, his voice barely a whisper. They weren't just hunting for food. It was a frenzy, an obsession. He was right. A normal pride would have tested our defenses and, finding us protected, moved on to easier prey. They wouldn't have wasted so much energy in a sustained blind rage against a metal box. They had acted like a pack of rabid dogs, not like the calculated, intelligent hunters of the savannah. There was no logic to their attack, only a terrifying, unnatural aggression that defied all animal instinct. Ben, the ever-observant scientist, pointed a trembling finger towards the spot where the lions had been. "Look," he said. "They didn't even touch our food supplies." Our coolers, which had been knocked over during the chaos, lay open on the ground. Packages of meat and other food were scattered everywhere, completely ignored. A hungry lion would never pass up such an easy meal. This was the final piece of proof we needed. Their goal had not been sustenance. Their goal had been us. They wanted to destroy us, specifically, and that was the most frightening thought of all. It was not nature we were fighting. It was something else entirely. The fear we felt was different now. It was no longer just the primal fear of a predator. It was a deeper, more intellectual dread. What could make an animal behave so unnaturally? What could twist its instincts into such a hateful, focused rage? We looked out at the vast, silent savannah, and it no longer felt like a place of beauty and wonder. It felt like a trap, a grand stage for a horror we could not comprehend. We knew we had to get away, but we also knew we had to understand. Our survival might depend not just on running, but on uncovering the terrible secret that the plains were hiding. Days blurred into a tense cycle of fear and exhaustion. We managed to change the tire, but our progress was slow and, honestly, fraught with peril. We only dared to travel during the brightest hours of the day when the lions seemed to retreat. At night we would find a clearing and stay inside the Land Rover, listening to the roars that echoed in the distance, a constant reminder that we were being watched, being stalked. During one of our slow, nerve-wracking drives, we saw it, a glint of metal where there should only be rock and bush. It was a fence, old and rusted, nearly swallowed by the encroaching wilderness. Curiosity, stronger even than our fear, pulled us closer. The fence was tall and topped with barbed wire, a clear sign that it was meant to keep something in, or keep something out. It was a scar on the face of the savannah, a man-made intrusion that felt deeply wrong. We followed the fence line for nearly a mile, our hearts pounding with a strange mix of dread and anticipation. It led us to a low concrete building, half hidden by overgrown vines and acacia trees. Its windows were dark and broken, like vacant eyes. A faded sign, barely legible, hung crookedly above a heavy steel door. It read, Ethelred Bioresearch. Authorized personnel only. A cold chill ran down my spine. This place was not on any of our maps. With Leo leading the way, we found a breach in the fence and cautiously approached the building. The air around it was still and silent, a dead zone where not even insects seemed to chirp. The steel door was ajar, hanging off one of its rusted hinges. Pushing it open, we were met with a wave of stale, chemical-smelling air. Inside, it was a scene of chaos and decay. Papers were scattered across the floor, glass from broken beakers crunched under our feet, and overturned cages lined the walls. It was a laboratory, abandoned in a hurry a long time ago. It felt like a tomb, a place where terrible things had happened. Ben picked up a damp, moldy file from a rusted filing cabinet. He carefully opened it, his fingers tracing the faded type. His face went pale. "Oh no," he whispered, his voice trembling. He read aloud from the document. It was a research log, detailing experiments in genetic modification. They were trying to create enhanced predators, more aggressive, more resilient. The primary test subjects were lions. They had been injecting them with a serum designed to heighten their predatory instincts and territorial aggression. The final entry was dated over a decade ago and spoke of a containment failure. The secret was out. The lions hunting us were not just lions. They were monsters of our own making. The revelation hit us like a physical blow. We stumbled back out of the decaying laboratory, into the harsh sunlight that now seemed honestly, kind of mocking in its brightness. The truth was worse than anything we could have imagined. We were being hunted by the tragic results of a forgotten, unethical experiment. These lions were not evil. They were victims, their minds and instincts twisted by science gone wrong. They were suffering, and their rage was a symptom of the poison that flowed through their veins. We looked at each other, the same horrifying understanding reflected in all our eyes. Our fight for survival had just become infinitely more complicated. A fierce debate erupted between us, our voices hushed but intense, as if the very wind might carry our words to the listening ears of our pursuers. Chloe was crying softly, her heart breaking for the creatures that were trying to kill us. "We have to tell someone," she insisted, her voice thick with emotion. "We have to expose this. What they did to them is a crime against nature." Ben agreed, his scientific mind appalled by the perversion of research he had just witnessed. He argued that leaving this secret buried would be an unforgivable act, allowing the possibility of it happening again somewhere else. But Leo, ever the pragmatist, was focused on one thing: getting us out alive. "Expose what? To who?" he challenged, his voice strained with the weight of responsibility he felt for us. "We're stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no radio, no way to communicate. Our priority has to be survival. We need to forget this place, get to the nearest town and get home. Trying to be heroes could get us all killed." I was torn. My heart sided with Chloe and Ben, feeling a profound sense of injustice. But the logical part of my brain, the part that was honestly terrified, knew that Leo was right. We were just 4 teenagers against a pack of super predators. The choice felt impossible, a heavy weight pressing down on our young shoulders. Should we run and save ourselves, carrying the terrible secret with us forever? Or should we risk everything to find a way to bring the truth to light, to give a voice to the voiceless animals that had been so cruelly wronged? The sun beat down on us as we stood there, paralyzed by the gravity of our decision. In the end, it was the memory of the lion's eyes, filled not just with hunger, but with a tormented fury, that made up our minds. We couldn't just run, we had to do both. We had to survive, not just for ourselves but so we could tell their story. Our survival now had a purpose beyond our own lives. With our new shared purpose came a surge of desperate energy. We were no longer just running, we were on a mission. We returned to the abandoned lab, this time not with fear, but with a goal. We needed proof, and we needed a way out. Ben, with his methodical mind, took charge of the search. While Leo worked on patching up the Land Rover as best he could, Ben, Chloe, and I scoured the decaying offices for anything that could help us. We had to be quick. The sun was beginning its slow descent, and we knew the hunters would return with the shadows. Our plan began to take shape, piece by painful piece. It was a gamble, a crazy long shot, but it was the only one we had. Ben discovered a map of the facility's grounds, which showed an old service road leading east, a road not marked on our tourist map. If it was still passable, it could be our escape route. Meanwhile, I found a box of old emergency flares. They were damp and probably unreliable, but honestly, they were better than nothing. We theorized that the lions, with their heightened senses, might be particularly sensitive to the intense light and sound of a flare. It could be our only weapon, a way to disorient them long enough to get away. Chloe, overcoming her fear, found the most important piece of our puzzle. Tucked away in a locked desk drawer, she found a thick leather-bound journal. It belonged to the lead scientist, a Dr. Alistair Finch. His handwriting was a frantic scrawl, detailing his growing horror and guilt over the experiments. He wrote about the serum's unforeseen side effects, excruciating pain, paranoia, and uncontrollable rage in the subjects. The final pages were a confession, a desperate plea for forgiveness. He described a kill switch compound he had developed, an antidote that could reverse the effects, but he had run out of time before the facility was shut down. He had hidden the formula. This was it. The proof. We carefully packed the journal and the files into a waterproof bag. Our plan was set. We would wait until just before dusk, the lions' preferred hunting time. We would use the Land Rover as a lure, making a run for the old service road. When the lions attacked, we would use the flares to create a wall of light and noise, hoping to stun them and buy ourselves a few precious seconds. It was a terrifying prospect, a direct confrontation with the creatures that haunted our nightmares. But now, we were armed not just with flares, but with knowledge and a fierce determination to see justice done. The world held its breath as the sun touched the horizon, spilling fiery colors across the sky. It was time. Our hearts pounded a frantic rhythm against our ribs as Leo turned the key. The Land Rover's engine coughed, sputtered, and then roared to life, the sound echoing across the silent plains like a challenge. We braced ourselves, peering into the growing darkness. We didn't have to wait long. They emerged from the tall grass, silent as ghosts, their golden eyes already fixed on us. The whole pride was there, moving with a chilling, coordinated purpose. They began to circle us, their low growls a terrifying promise of the violence to come. "Now, Leo, go!" I yelled, my voice cracking. The Land Rover lurched forward, bumping and rattling down the overgrown service road. The lions broke into a run, easily keeping pace with our battered vehicle. They were faster than normal lions, their movements unnaturally swift. One leaped onto the back of the Rover, its claws screeching against the roof. Chloe screamed, "The flares!" Ben shouted, tearing open the box. He handed one to me and kept one for himself. With trembling hands I struck the cap. It hissed, and then erupted in a brilliant, blinding red light. I shoved the flare out of my cracked window, pointing it directly at the face of the lion on our roof. It let out a pained, enraged roar and recoiled, momentarily blinded by the intense magnesium glare. It stumbled and fell away. Ben lit his flare, and we created a moving shield of dazzling, sputtering light around the car. The lions fell back, confused and angered by the assault on their sensitive eyes and ears. They were disoriented, their pack coordination shattered by our unexpected counterattack. It was working. It was actually working. The plan was insane, but it was giving us the chance we so desperately needed. We raced on through the darkness, the Land Rover groaning in protest as it hit rocks and ruts. Behind us, the roars of the tormented lions grew fainter and fainter. We didn't dare to look back. We just drove, our eyes fixed on the narrow path illuminated by our headlights, praying the old road wouldn't lead to a dead end. Hours passed in a blur of adrenaline and fear. Finally, unbelievably, we saw it in the distance. The faint warm glow of electric lights. A small town. Civilization. We had made it. We had survived. We collapsed against each other, sobbing with relief, the scientist's journal clutched tightly in my hand like a sacred promise. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. We were safe, but our journey was far from over. Back in the world of people and buildings, our story sounded like a wild fantasy. At first, no one wanted to believe us. They saw us as traumatized kids with an overactive imagination. But we had the proof. We had the scattered research files, and most importantly, we had Dr. Finch's journal. Ben's father, a respected journalist, listened to our story with a grave expression. He saw the truth in our eyes and in the evidence we had so carefully protected. He knew this was a story the world needed to hear. Our tale was published, first as a front-page article, then it was picked up by news agencies around the globe. The story of the ghost lions of the Savannah became a symbol of corporate greed and the horrifying consequences of playing God with nature. Ethelred Bioresearch, long since dissolved, was investigated. The surviving executives were held accountable for their past crimes. The public outcry was enormous. People were horrified that such a thing could have happened, hidden away in one of the world's most beautiful wildernesses. Our ordeal had sparked a global conversation about scientific ethics and the protection of our planet's wildlife. But our promise was not just about exposing the past, it was about healing the future. Armed with the formula from Dr. Finch's journal, a team of expert veterinarians and conservationists was assembled. They developed the antidote and, with immense care and caution, launched a mission to find and treat the afflicted pride. It would be a long and difficult process, but for the first time, there was hope. Hope that the tormented lions could be freed from the chemical prison that had twisted their minds. Hope that they could, one day, become the magnificent natural creatures they were always meant to be. We had survived our run from the lions, but we carried the savannah with us forever. We had looked into the face of unnatural horror and chosen not just to flee, but to fight back with the truth. We learned that courage isn't about the absence of fear, but about acting in spite of it. Our promise to the wild was kept. We had given a voice to the victims of that terrible secret, ensuring their story would serve as a permanent warning. And somewhere, under the vast African sky, a pride of lions might one day find peace, their roars no longer a sound of rage, but a song of the wild, pure and free once more.